I had this amazing example from somebody in our peer learning program who was talking about, like, a young person who was quite a large bloke, and he was really angry in one of the sessions and like shouting and swearing. And at some point, she just kind of interrupted him and said, "I can see you're really upset. Do you want a hug?" And he just broke down and was like, "Yes, I'd really like it." So she gave him a hug, and he was kind of just sobbing and kind of telling her that nobody had hugged him in such a long time. And it's that bit about, like, when you look for love, you're just looking for different things. You're not kind of putting up barriers, um, but you're actually breaking them down, and you're creating this lovely relationship with a young person who is otherwise really alone and kind of just trapped with that anger and has to hold on to so many things. I'm not looking for people to kind of start saying "I love you" to every young person they work with, um, but actually to kind of just look for, when does love have a place to play, and how can I express that in ways that are appropriate, and you know, give young people that sense of, this is a relationship where they feel loved and cared for and seen, and where people look beyond the facade, beyond the behavior, at the beautiful human being they are.
That example of offering a hug, um, I always offer a hug when I see young people, and there are some young people who will always say no thanks, but there are some who will first say no thanks, and then later, as they get to know me, they'll say yes please, and some who will just be like yes please from the start, and we just like just as a greeting, as a yeah, it's nice to see you. And I think that's a way of expressing that physical touch love that's talked about in the five love languages. That's a really simple way that just expresses it, um, and it also expresses those elements of consent uh, and the way that is appropriate for relationships and boundaries that I know some people get concerned about when it talks about love, because when you're offering that consent, um, you put those boundaries in place naturally. So one of our young people talks about professional friendship, and we use that term constantly because um, that professional friendship brings the sense of there has to be boundaries because people are professionals, but it's not just a professional relationship. There is a friendship there. There's a genuine care for one another, a genuine interest in one another, curiosity about each other's lives, and an authentic sharing. And I would be tempted to call that love, really. And that's what I would see it looking like. I know when I've talked about it before, for me, why would you put love in a professional context? Well, actually, before you can do that, because love is so understood in so many different ways, I'd have to want to come back to what is love? How do I define it? And what does that love look like? And for me, the best thing that I've come across is that reading that's read out at weddings and churches quite often from the Bible that talks about love being patient and kind. And it says, it does not envy, it does not boast, it keeps no record of wrongs, it does not delight in evil, it rejoices with the truth. What else does it say? It always protects, always trusts, always hopes, always perseveres. And it's that protect, trust, perseverance that I think is really key. And that's actually what young people talk about in the research in the blog that's done for this session, and in the sort of wider reading that you can do around that sense of trust and consistency in turning up and protecting people in the right way really matters. And I think when we show that, that makes a massive difference. Um, I also think something that is missing from the love languages, actually, and from some of the materials, um, although the social pedagogy blog talks about it a little bit, is um, is that sense of justice and anger that goes alongside love. So, because you love someone, when an injustice is done towards them, you feel a sense of grief and upset and annoyance and frustration and anger. and the way that you express that can actually express love to young people. So when I'm talking to young people and they're cross about how they've been their experiences of care, for example, or they're frustrated about um, the response that someone gave to them when they made a request for something, usually some funds towards something or something like that. Actually, if I genuinely feel that frustration alongside them and that anger and upset with them, that empathy for their situation, they can sense that love. And alongside that, and the complexities of this are so huge, but alongside that, there's a power dynamic going on, isn't there? And I've always want to be empowering, but also I have to be aware that, and I suppose in my role it's slightly different. But if you were not a participation worker, if you were in a different sort of role where you do have where you have the opportunity to make some changes and make some decisions, actually doing that genuinely informed and on behalf of children and young people shows that sense of love and care, and that's what you want to be doing. Surely that's why we're all doing this, and if we're not doing that, we're probably doing the wrong jobs.
That justice dimension is really important because I think it also refers to that bit about we need to change the system in order for it to be more loving, more caring, and we clearly work within a system that maybe is that at the best of times, but yeah, often has failed the young people that we might be supporting.
Yeah, and I think that sense of wanting to change things and improve things, certainly for lots of the young people that I work with who are involved in making, influencing decisions and talking to decision makers and wanting stuff to change, that sense of improvement comes from a place of love and care for other people. And I think that's something that not, not being in care experience myself, I really appreciate in the care experience, not just the young people I work with, but the care experience people I work with in all walks, is that there is a deep sense of care and love for others that shines through and is something to aspire to and to be inspired by as well. Um, and I think that when young people, that's why I love working with young people. When young people do something, they do it really well, and they inspire you and make you want to do it better and improve it, and um, they set new standards and new heights that you can aim for, and hopefully reach alongside them and with them.
I like that point. It kind of suggests that, you know, in many ways, like a care experiencing person could say, like, care is something that happened to me and I had this shitty experience. I can't really undo that. But actually, that love for whoever's going to follow next, whoever's going to be a care experiencing person in the future, I want to make things better for them. Um, that that's a sign of love, isn't it? That's a sign of love for somebody they don't even know, but that they know they'll be in a situation and yeah, where they might
Yeah,
need things to be different.
and I think we have to recognize that because sometimes we can see young people coming across as really frustrated or angry, um, and sometimes that is on behalf of themselves, but very often that's on behalf of other people, and they're not just angry for themselves or they're angry for others, and that is because they genuinely care. Um, and like recognizing that is important. And whenever yeah, it's about that's what love does, isn't it? Like I said, it keeps no record of wrongs. So even if someone is being um, really harsh to you or ungrateful, I remember one young person speaking to me um, really, really harshly. And swearing at me and telling me to have. I mean, that's happened a lot in my life, but this particular example, and actually, I found that really, really difficult because I really, really respected that young person, and um, and as a people pleaser, I was like, oh, I don't want to be disliked. Ah, I'm worried about that, but I can't hold on to that. That's something that I have to go. I'm not gonna. I care for this young person enough to let that go and say that's not something that's going to tarnish our relationship. if if for some if for some reason they're going to let that cause an issue between us, that's up to them. But I'm not going to be the one who's going to end that relationship. And and so we did repair that relationship, and that young person moved on to do other things fairly soon after. But at least we were in a more positive place by then, because neither of us had got frustrated or carried what could have been quite a um, both yeah, we could have both been really frustrated with the other person, and actually we didn't have to be. We let that go, and I think that's testament to them, and hopefully to choosing to love. And I think that is important here as well. Love is always a choice. I think love is always an action. It's always a choice. So you've got an opportunity to be kind. You can choose to be kind. If you've got an opportunity to be patient, you can choose to be patient. If you've got an opportunity to right something that's wrong, you can do that. If you've got an opportunity to protect others and to trust someone, you can. If you've got an opportunity to offer hope, you can. And I think that hope thing is really important as well. I think for lots of young people and lots of society more broadly at the moment, hope is really a difficult thing to find, particularly with the news that's just going on in the world, all over the world, all the time. Um, when we can offer hope, that is a loving thing to do. And what does that look like? I think that's a really important question to ask ourselves. What does hope look like for this young person? What does hope look like for me at this time? What does hope look like um, when for this group of young people that I'm working with at the moment? And love then enacts or tries to enact that hope to be possible, and hopes for that young person as well.
Yeah, thanks. I wonder if you can say a little bit more about why do you feel it's important that we use the term love to describe those things rather than talk about positive regard or compassion?
Uh,
You know,
yeah,
the
I mean,
interesting
I
bit,
like.
just before I let you go, the interesting bit is that I read that John Bowlby, who came up with attachment, had first written and used the term love, and then decided that it was a bit too fluffy, and attachment had a more scientific sound to it. Uh,
Yes.
and let's imagine what would have happened if he'd made a different choice, and we would not be talking about attachment theory all the time, but we would be talking about love. So that,
Can you imagine love theory? That sounds like the name of a band or a song, doesn't it?
yeah,
And that would be a lot better. I think love is a really important word, and um, it is difficult to use it because it has so many different meanings. So that we often talk about ancient Greek terminology like agape and philos and eros and different kinds of love that they talked about, and within those there are very different kinds of love. There's the sexual love of eros, there's the romantic love, there's the friendship love of philos, and there's like the unconditional love that just gives for the sake of giving of agape, and they're all different. And so when we talk about love in the context of children and young people, I think it's important that we're clear about what we mean. And I think we can be clear about what we mean by stating it. When I'm talking about love, I mean that we care for people, we turn up for them, we're consistent, we listen, um, we take on board what they say, all of those things, and we name that really explicitly with young people, because I think we do have to do a bit of reclaiming of the word love, particularly for some young people who have experienced love as being a word that has led to harm and pain, and people who've caused them harm and pain have used that word, and then they've experienced things that are not loving. So we do need to, and that's why I think we do need to use it, because I think if we don't use it, it actually deprives people of the use of that term in their, not just in their as they leave care, but also in their adult life. Because when, I mean, the research shows as well that when children and people experience love in care and throughout care, they show it more adequately in their adequately. That's one word. They're more likely to show it in their adult life, and I think um, when we reclaim that word and use that word, that gives permission and makes it easier to do that, because you're not, as a young person, you're not making connections that are abstract, going, oh, when someone asks me about love, this, and this is what I see. You making concrete connections that you're being told and explicitly talked about. That means you can then have those conversations about love, and you can say, oh, you love me in this way, but that person told me they love me, but they want to be my boyfriend or girlfriend or partner. Um, and that feels different. And you can have those conversations, and that person might be 9 years old or 15 years old, whatever place they're in where those conversations need to happen. Um, I think it's important that we allow them to happen. Um, in terms of unconditional positive regard, which is a great term, and attachment, they're great terms scientifically, but they take away something of humanity, and 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 our experience isn't scientific. Our experience is human. So when you use words like that and you treat it scientifically, you take something away from the full experience of being human. It's like having a rainbow and just choosing the red and the violet, or something, like choosing the two ends and not choosing the full color that's in the middle, and not seeing it, or just seeing it in black and white rather than have a full color tally. It, like, yeah, that tells you something stark, but it doesn't point to all of life. And I think love offers something that's deeper, and I think more complex. And I think more complex is good, in this instance, because humanity is never simple and life is never simple. It's better to be real, and love offers that, in my view.
Thanks. I love that. That's a beautiful metaphor as well with the rainbow. So how do you draw the boundary then for yourself in terms of how do you reflect on how you show love, how you receive love from the young people? How do you do that in a way that's professionally informed as well
Yeah,
as authentic,
I think
personal?
I I think those three P's are really important: the personal, professional, and private. And I think, is it for me or is it for them? So love is not self-seeking; it puts other people first. So if I'm being truly loving, I'm not doing something for my own gain, or for my own benefit, or for um, my own good feeling. Although lots of those things are benefits we get from being loving. Quite often we do feel good about loving, and we have to recognize that. And that's something for us to reflect on and be, cautious about. But actually, am I doing this for the young person? Is it for their benefit? How does it benefit them? And am I doing it with their knowledge and consent, um, in a way that hopefully helps them flourish, and be more connected and feel more empowered, and more able to be themselves. And I think when you do that, understanding your your professionalism, and as professionals, we have a knowledge of what we want young people to achieve. We want them to achieve their potential, and we understand what causes harm, what doesn't cause harm, to some extent, at least. Then um, we can hold those all at the same time. It's quite a possible thing to do, I think. So within this, your context, your individual, your media professional, and your profession are all pulling in different directions sometimes. Um, so, and then you've got your other three things in the middle, and your how tongue is like what drives you, what makes you do what you want to do. Really, it's like who you are, essentially, and what's driven you to where you want to be. And for me, that would be love would be central to that as well. So, how do I put love in all of these places? I hold them all uh, within a balance of one another, and I have them all in my mind. So, how I make decisions about what's most loving in this context would be by, um, looking at this and thinking, okay, for the young person, for the individual, what's most loving, what's most helpful? Am I being professional in that? Um, am I being myself within that? And in the context of the wider society in which we're living, is that appropriate? Is that sensible? Is that legal? All of the things that we would need to ask. Obviously, we always want to do legal stuff, but I'm taking the extremes to make it clear. So that's what I would be thinking about as I made decisions about where does love fit within that, and holding that within it.
You see, I had not made that connection, but that is brilliant.
Yeah,
Consider the different sort of factors in how you make how you arrive at a decision about what might be the right thing to do. A bit about, yeah, I feel like very often that bit about it depends is a good thing, but can also leave people feeling like, okay, but then what does it depend on, and how do I then arrive at a decision that is still kind of informed by all of these things? And
yeah,
so
and
stuff like that can really
that's where
help.
you've got to trust yourself to some extent as well. So, because if you look at if you look at classic classic ethics, I'm thinking about even if you look back to Aristotle and virtue ethics, actually, talks about a balance and that a virtuous person will make a virtuous decision. So it's that you're trying to build on your previous decisions because you're always trying to be consistently making wise choices. I think that's really helpful. I think is it Joseph Fletcher talks about relativism within ethics as well, relative ethics, and what is the most loving thing to do at this point. Um, and I think that's important to ask for yourself, for the person that you're working with, and for the wider society. And some of the times they conflict, and you've just got to make a decision within that. And there are no hard and fast answers to stuff in my experience. And you will get it wrong, and that's okay because part of being loving is being able to say sorry, and to A, accept forgiveness and B, offer forgiveness. Those are parts of what it is to be loving and to be in true relationship with other people. Um, all of this, of course, in the context of you are a professional and other people, the people you're working with are not professionals, so there's an imbalance of power. So you've got to hold all of this in tension.
Is there anything that you feel like if people did one thing tomorrow that they're not doing today, that would show to a young person that sense of love? What do you think they should do?
Um, Most people will be doing something that shows love already. So most people will be listening to a young person well, they'll be prioritizing young person's needs. If you have a shift in understanding from I'm doing this because it's the right thing to I'm doing this because it's the loving thing to do, I think young people see that. We say that young people can always tell someone's authentic. And I believe that to be true. And I think it's also true that young people can see when you love them and genuinely care for them. And when your intention is to always be loving and caring, they see that. So most of the things that most people will be doing here today will be doing stuff that is loving already. And just that little shift in understanding of what motivating me to do that and recognizing being more self-aware that actually you do love young people, and they're not all easy to love, but love is a choice, as I said, and love is an action. Then you are being loving, and just having that different understanding in your interactions will come across. That's um, I know that's quite a conceptual thing to do, but hopefully it's understandable and makes sense.
Absolutely, and I think you can do that in whichever practice context you work in, right? That's the beauty of that answer.
Yeah,
And I
yeah,
think it
exactly.
also there's also something about hopefully people will feel like they have permission to show love.
Yes,
Because as you say,
yeah,
like we love, yeah, we love our work, we love
yeah.
the young people that we work with. So let's just, yeah, feel like we can
Yeah.
own that. We don't have to pretend otherwise.
Love is not a shameful thing. It's not something to be scared of. It's a good and beautiful thing that makes our world a better place. So why wouldn't you? Why wouldn't you? Like that, what are you doing if you're not talking about it or showing love? Like you're taken away from. It's like killing daffodils for no reason. Why would you do that? That's my little analogy.
Yeah, brilliant. Such a good conversation, honestly. Thank you so much.